It's time for today's episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGA Sports Live Podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Hey everybody, welcome to the UGA Sports Live Podcast. My name is Radi. I'll be your host for the next hour or so. I'm joined by Jake Roos, the recruiting superstar at UGAsports.com, and of course, Jim Donnan, former head coach, Hall of Famer. I always say former Georgia head coach, but you know the guy's been around. He's been around. He's coached everywhere and done everything. If it's possible to be called or competed against on a football field, Jim Donnan has done it.
Or a tennis court, for that matter.
Or a tennis court. And, you know, when our post-game show, we were talking about punting, and don't forget, you know, Coach knows a thing or two about punting the ball.
Yeah, I had to get on the field my sophomore year some way, but I got to play a little bit. But I tell you, punter let us down the other night a little bit. I was surprised, but that happens. The first one, it looked like the searchlighter back there backed up into him a little bit, and he had to withdraw its follow-through. But the last one, he just missed it. But, hey, you know, he'll be okay, but he needs to deliver in those kind of situations. But I didn't mean to get off on that. So what are we going to
So we got to be careful what we mention in front of Coach, because Coach has opinions on everything.
I will be telling you we're going to play Tennessee next week, and there were these two guys that were there on death row, and the warden came in there and talked to him. One guy was from Tennessee and one guy was from Georgia. And he said, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to give you a chance to have anything you want, one last wish before you get executed. And the guy said, from Tennessee, says, I want to hear Rocky Top one more time.
Really?
And the guy from Georgia said, kill me first. How many times can you hear that song, man? Hopefully it won't be playing much in a couple of weeks.
I'll tell you what, though, 7 o'clock kickoff at Neyland Stadium.
Is it going to be 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. ESPN.
When they announced that?
Yesterday.
Yes, sir.
A team that doesn't have a lot to lose. And, listen, people say what you want about that playing surface up at Neyland. It's
garbage.
It's not a deal.
And it'll be slippery, too.
Yeah.
And, you know, Cheney knows our team, and I mean, they look bad against Florida, though. I was really surprised. I thought they'd go in there and compete. But, you know, one play turned the whole game around. He threw the ball over the middle, and the guy's catching for a touchdown. It goes through his hands, and they intercept it. But, hey, I hope we got a lot of questions today. We've rehashed this game so many times, I feel like a broken record. We had that show on Sunday trying to eclipse the Ben-Hur episode. We were on an hour or something. I got laryngitis, man. I'm serious.
It was a good show. It was
fun, but my throat's hurting. I hadn't talked that much in a long time. So.
We'll limit you on your post-game Tennessee Raptors.
No, I'm okay with that.
You got an off week. You can rest the voice.
Yeah, that's true. But
the golden throat.
But I would like for you to throw out that idea and see how many fans would be interested in that, because Coach Switzer does it out in Oklahoma, where they have kind of a watch-along where, he's on the cable, but we could do it on YouTube, where maybe you and I would just watch the game, and then the fans could listen to us and maybe watch the game, and we could give everybody our thoughts on it. I'd like to know how many people would be interested in that.
Yeah, I think so. So, and ideally, a couple sponsors would be nice too. But basically, the idea would be, hey, I ain't gonna do nothing without a dollar. The idea is, you're watching the game on CBS or this 7 o'clock ESPN game. You're going to be listening to some people that they roll in on Wednesday. Dave, when does the talent show up for a game? Wednesday, Thursday. So they show up on Thursday. Dave produces all this stuff for CBS, ESPN, and all that. And he knows the talent folks, and they're good people. But they don't follow the team in and out. They don't go to as many practices as we do. So we thought what we'd do is just open up on our YouTube channel a watch-along. 5 minutes before the game starts, me and Coach sitting down. You got to work.
As usual.
Have maybe a beer or 6, and we sit there and you open up on your phone or your tablet or computer a little a second screen, and you will be sitting there. Now we can't show the game because we don't have the rights to it, but we'd sit there and make comments, and we'd be a little bit behind the action by about 3-4 seconds. But of course, when they score, then you can watch my reaction, which is always good. Anyway. if you're interested in that, let us know, because that's a long time to sit there and talk.
Yeah,
Coach.
we did it. We had a really
we're
good.
going to watch a game anyway. So I was watching with our friends.
When I was working at ESPN, we did that on .com, and it's a lot like what they call the coach's film room now that they're doing. But we were doing it on the internet where, we would actually go to the game itself, and then people would ask questions and we would answer them right there at the site, or we would do it from the studio too. So there's a lot of good questions happen during the course of the game, like, what's Uga? How's he feeling?
Well, the neat thing is during the game we could also have Jake could call in, Patrick could call in, Dash could call in, just say, hey, what did you just hear about in the press box? What are you seeing on the field?
I'm out here working my nuts off. You guys, I hope those beers are cold.
So, Jake, how hot is it down there? Is it as really as rainy as it looks on TV?
I think it's a good idea by you, but we got to see if people want to do it, because
I don't know if people want to spend 4 hours with me. I'm sure they'd want to spend 4 hours with you, but
yeah, I thought it was 3, but I guess the game lasts longer.
Depends if it's CBS or not.
Yeah, but
that first quarter, oh my God!
I thought CBS did a good job with that game. It was
a lot of cool shots. They had
some really good stuff. Sometimes I was really I was worried they weren't going to get back to the play. They had so many shots, but. Let's see if we got some questions here right off the bat instead of giving my idea about what happened. I'd like some questions.
All right. Let's see here.
You do that.
Yeah. Let's see. I want to make sure that we get into a good one first because I think that we got a ton to dive into today.
Let's dive.
Let's see. All right. Orlando Dog over on the Dog Vent at UGAsports.com. He says, Coach, do you see the Dogs' first-half struggles against Notre Dame as an error in execution by UGA, perfect defense by Notre Dame, or a combination of both?
I think it all boiled down to one thing. It's all the fact that our starting 2 corners were out, and we muffed a punt, and from that point on, we tried to make sure we didn't lose the game. So we were very, very conservative in a lot of things we did. And we didn't knock them around like we needed to. But as far as answering his question distinctly, they did some things in the first half that, moving their linebackers, what we call wrapping them, going off the edge, moving around, playing some single high safety, which we didn't expect. But it hurt them in the third and fourth quarter because we were able to really throw the ball on them. But we didn't make enough first downs. I think we only ran 18 plays in the first half and had a couple lost yardage plays. But overall, give them credit. We didn't execute a couple times, and we were, we were backed up a little bit, field position wise, and they just didn't want to take a chance after muffing that punt. So, I think we learned a lot about ourselves from the standpoint we were in an adversity situation and had to come back, and it was not a pretty game by any stretch. But I thought our defense did a tremendous job of adjusting to being without. You take any team in the country.
And pull those 2 quarters.
Look at Alabama. For instance, I'm just going to say Alabama against South Carolina. They lost those 2 linebackers the week of the practice. And you saw the way South Carolina moved up and down the field on them. It's just hard to get new guys ready. But I'm going to just give the red badge of courage to Tyreek McGee. He came in there, a veteran guy, played his buns off, and really, really did a good job. And so did Shaffer. Both these guys could enter the transfer portal. That's why you have a team, guys that know their role and stick around. And certainly we got Stevenson is going to be a good guy down the stretch and will be more talented, but, he didn't have the experience. And then hopefully, Campbell will get back. And Stokes came back at the end of the game when they finally realized, I think, that McGee was over. They didn't really attack him till this, like I thought they would. And Brent Rollins made some good stuff on that. And I will say this. If there's any site in our area code that has anything remotely like what Dane and Brent are doing, I like to see it, because it's not, as an old coach, they know what they're doing, and it's very, very good for our fans to see exactly. We can talk about it, but it's very vivid, if you can get it to work. I can't get it to work sometimes because I press it and then I go back to this. I got to figure it out, and that's because I'm inept. But I'm sure it works good. But I lose the thing sometimes. But I don't need to look at those. I know what happened. But the regular fan, give them some love there. They're doing a good job on it. But let's go back to this though. I've answered this for a long time. I just feel like that our team needed a tight fit game. I hate that we didn't score there at the end and all that, but overall I like where our team is after 4 games, and hopefully Wilson's going to be back now, and we got some experienced guys that are going to help us that got a chance to play in a lot of areas. But that's the answer to that question.
If you don't know what Coach is talking about, you haven't been over to UGASports.com yet and seen Film Don't Lie, go check that out. People are going nuts for it. Longtime subscribers telling us it's one of our favorite things they've ever done. So really go check that series out.
So we got the guy, Brent Rawls from Pro Football Focus, and then Dane Young, who's our video guy, great analyst. 2 guys. Then they put together small little video clips, GIFs, and you can actually watch what they talk about. And they had some good stuff about wide receiver, tight end blocking. They did an isolation on Mark Webb. Mark Webb comes flying in, goes between the tight end and the tackle.
Let him watch it. Let him watch it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, this is neat stuff you need to see. And, okay, it's behind the paywall. Yes, I know. We're bastards. Sue us. But right now, today is the last day. You can get a 50% off deal for your first year at UGASports.com.
You pay peanuts, you get monkeys.
And that's Tuesday. Today is Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday. So today's the last day.
Whenever you're listening to this, just be aware.
We'll have a show up. Go ahead and subscribe for the first year. You get it at 50% off, something we've only done once before. Now, we've never done before. We've never gone in and said, oh, okay, so you paid us $50 for 1 year, which was half off. Now we're going to give you a $49.50 gift code to the UGA fan shop. So if you want a new hat, new shirt, a cool shirt like Coach Donnan's wearing, you want some Beat Tennessee T-shirts or anything, you can get the $50 equivalent gift code from UGASports.com when you sign up.
So you get year 1 for 50 cents.
Yeah. So
essentially.
So your first year is basically 50 cents. So you got to do that.
All right, Coach. Big question here. A lot of people were wondering this during the game. I know you and I have actually had a chance to talk about it. Jay Robert over on the Dog Vent says, Coach, the Notre Dame tight ends were open all night. What was it about their scheme, about our scheme, that allowed that? And what were we so determined to prevent that we allowed it to continue?
Yeah, I think early on, I made that comment about our corners, and so we really didn't use our safeties at all, which you could do playing man-free, jump on the tight end with one of the safeties. But we were playing all kind of too-deep coverage trying to protect the corners, and our linebackers got called on play action. And this guy is a good athlete. He's actually a baseball pitcher, too, and he hadn't caught a pass all year. And they hurt us for sure, particularly picking up some third down conversions with him. And it's just a case of they got a big-time receiver in that number 83. We were geared in on him, and we didn't want him to beat us deep, particularly after we lost those, knew we didn't have Stokes in there, and we already knew that Campbell didn't dress out. So it wasn't pretty, but, they still only got 10 points in the first half with all those catches. So, and one of them was a gift on that muff punt. And I will say this, some people have talked about that Simmons was in there with a shoulder harness on. He didn't have any kind of harness restricting him. He just had a pad on his shoulder to protect it. But do you think Kirby Smart's making $6 million going to put a guy back there that can't catch a punt? Well, if he's making 7, whatever he's making, you're not going to put a guy – you're going to put your best guy back there. And he missed the punt, but it wasn't because of a shoulder harness. And then the next guy that goes in, Blaylock, lets the ball roll for 20 yards. So we got to make some adjustments in our punt return game. You're gonna miss some once in a while, and but it wasn't because of a shoulder harness.
I do want to point out, I've mentioned this, longtime listeners of the show have heard me go on this rant for a long time. I think one of the trickiest things to do in football is catch a punt.
Oh, no question.
The ball goes up, and then in a night game,
with everything that's going on, the lights, you've got the people pressing down on you, guys are
and
screaming
11 men
at you,
coming at you, trying to take your head off.
Yeah, no doubt.
And you got to sit there and you got to land it. And I the reason I say this is because there was there's been multiple practices where we've seen coaches test guys. They're like, when I saw Tavares King just go nuts not being able to field a punt, it was just driving him crazy. Here's a NFL wide receiver. He's like, I can catch a damn football, but it just couldn't judging it right. It's tough, you know. Yeah. And so I very seldom want to bang on anybody who muffs a punt. Now, bad protection, stuff like that, I got issues with, but you know, it is tough. So to me, if you're going to be the guy back there catching it, and I like people that would complain about a guy fair catching. I'm like,
the Logan Gray Award.
The Logan Gray Award. I'm like, hell.
Comes out of Columbia, Missouri, out of Hickman High, comes out of here and does a heck of a job fair catching punts for a long time.
But a lot of times, you remember, though, he wouldn't fair catch. He'd just catch and get clobbered, too.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, he almost got killed a couple times.
I think for sure having a guy that you know will make the catch is important, though, because you give up valuable yards. I used to really get on me. If you let that ball roll, it hurts you. But
I think if the ball's come this way, if it hits the ground, it's going to keep going.
It was just a lot of things, then all of a sudden Kinley gets hurt, and Shaffer comes in, does a good job. But, things are just so micro-analyzed, Hey, Mays missed the guy on the pass rush. Guys making $6-7 million in the $20 million in the pros miss him. I mean, but he had a good grade. I noticed on Pro Football Focus, our grades, Mays graded out about as high as anybody next to Andrew. So who knows what's going to happen.
I do want to have a scheme question for you. So Georgia loses early in the game, 11 plays in on defense. You lose Eric Stokes. You're without your two starting cornerbacks. You bring in a couple backups, guys who are going to play well, but they need help, so your safeties are back, taking away the big play. So you got that tight end running around underneath making plays. You mentioned, there's some linebackers who need to cover him. Do you bring in a Devad Wilson or a Mark Webb to basically go one-on-one with him, or is that too big of a size mismatch?
No, it's not if you're going to play man coverage, but you got to remember we're not going to play man with these corners like we would with the other guys. We're going to play too deep zone. We're going to play too deep man under, but you worry about playing man under against this quarterback because he can scramble. So
that's where I was missing.
It's all a chess match, but I thought we did a really good job in the second half where we did get the did Devad get the interception? When did he get that? First quarter. When was it? When was that first interception?
I was not out on the field when that happened.
Can you look that up?
I think that was.
But the way we put the coverage, we kind of schemed him up where it looked like the guy could run the crossing route, and then Devad's just sitting there, and he bounced that baby back and forth for a long time. But there's another guy that just physical, big kid, is hung in there, and I thought he and Webb both played extremely well, tackled well. But the guy that had the big game for us was Reed. I mean, when you get a 90% grade by somebody that's like Pro Football Focus grade, and you know that he was doing a lot of good things right, tackling well, made that super interception on a play where it looked like they had a chance for a big play, but we had the corner blitz on, and it kind of caught him off. But
you got to like the fact that when Devad was out there, I don't know that he missed a tackle.
I don't recall that happening.
And, we know Mark Webb's
if you ever ask him, he's never missed one.
No, of course not. No,
he's a very confident kid.
Yeah, very, very much so. But when you get some guys who haven't played as much, that's always my biggest fear. You bring in, and I know Tariq McGee's a big hitter, but Tariq hasn't played a whole lot. Devad hasn't played as much as the other guys. And when you bring in a new guy, I always worried about they haven't been hit. They're not hitting as much as they were, and sometimes they break a tackle. Sometimes they're still in that thud mode. But no, he was swallowing guys up. I thought he was very well. And, again, I do want to mention Justin Shaffer. Shout out to him. That is a tough spot to come in cold, and he did a good job. I know a lot of people forget about Justin Shaffer, and I'm like, look, this guy, he's in the list of guys who came in who fought very hard for one of those guard spots and came up just short. It's not like he's a mile down the depth chart and you had to go to a scrub. This guy's really good, and that's the kind of depth that at the end of the press conference, what did Kirby Smart – I mean, it was a very quiet press conference till the end. Then he got very passionate talking about team depth because team depth saved his butt.
Well, and that's what he was brought here for. That's what these recruiting classes have turned into. I mean, it's what people have wanted to see all along. And for him to be able to put that on display on that kind of stage, I think it spoke a lot of volumes.
Well, the one thing I want to just reiterate, you draw the parallel to Alabama the week of losing those 2 starters and us losing 2 starters, and South Carolina is not near the team Notre Dame is, and we adjusted extremely well. I think the major difference right now, particularly if we get these guys back, and every team that is considered in the to be in a playoff run here, and you maybe got to say Auburn if they keep on. Auburn's defense is very much comparable to us, but I like our defense a lot better than Alabama or LSU to this point. I just feel like we just got a lot of different guys that can do stuff, and we're just so much better on the back end than they are. I mean, look at how many yards they gave up to Vanderbilt.
Coach, I got a question for you, but Radi, I got a quick hitter for you first off. Injury update. Tyson Campbell, Isaiah Wilson, Solomon Kinley. Got a couple of questions about those guys. What are you hearing on those fronts, and when should we maybe be looking for those guys?
We're not going to know anything really till tomorrow. A lot of the guys were off. They got a little breather. Some guys went in for a lift, but at this point, no real updates on any of those guys.
Bye came at the right time for the Bulldogs.
That's my point is you have a bye.
I feel good about Wilson. The fact that he could play a whole half.
Yep.
He's got 2 weeks to continue.
The fact that Eric Stokes came back into the game
It's going to take a little while on Campbell. When you got turf toe, sometimes it takes a couple weeks. Sometimes it takes, it's a tough injury. I mean, people, you know how you feel when you stump your toe trying to walk around. And then Kinley, I think he'll sit back this week and probably be ready for Tennessee, hopefully.
All right, do it for the Dogs over on the vent. Wants to know.
Do it for the Dogs.
Yeah,
what is he doing for the Dogs?
A great question here, though, for you, Coach. He says, how does a hard-fought battle with a game of this caliber spark and motivate a team going forward?
Yeah, I think the best part about it going into a bye week is the fact that you're going to reevaluate everything you're doing, regardless if you're undefeated or if you hadn't won a game. But you always talk to them about situations in football because that's what football is all about now. It's situational football, how you react, what you're able to do, how you're able to make the right decisions in those critical situations. And so basically over the next 3 or 4 days, Kirby will be in the team meeting. He'll show some clips of things that we did good and how it helped us win, and things that we did poorly and how it put us in a bad situation. So we're basically getting to the point where if we get that situation again, we're going to continue to do it like we did, or we're going to improve on the way we didn't do it. And it really hits home because it's a very vivid picture of what the coaches are telling you. And I know because of my wife's situation, I haven't been out to watch the team nearly as much, but my daughter, fortunately, has been in here for the last week or so, and I was able to go out to practice Wednesday, and one of the paramount things that Kirby was talking about is taking care of the ball and creating turnovers, because Notre Dame, every game they've won over the last 2 years, they've had the edge in the turnover battle, and it turned out to be a big difference there in the fact that we had 2 critical interceptions that helped us, and that we did have the muff punt, but we won the turnover battle and they lost the game. So
you know what made me really nervous about that? Georgia fumbled the ball 4 times and only lost 1 of them. Georgia put the ball on the ground a bunch of times. They hung on to it.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
That was scary.
It is scary, but they practice that.
Yep.
You realize that our linemen practice once a week, learning first of all how to recover a fumble, and then actually practice and recovering the fumble. And the receivers and the guys that handle the ball more, they do it every day, fumble recovery. And defense practices about a 5 or 6 minute takeaway deal where they knock the ball out, where they scoop and pick the ball up. You know, one of the biggest keys when you pick a ball up is if you would do this, if you're coaching Little League, Brent Rollins, all you guys, right before you pick the ball up, do a little shuffle to get yourself under control, a little skip. instead of just reaching down. That skip makes you break down, and you get your thumbs out and form a basket and pick that ball up. Don't try to do get you a basket, do a little karaoke skip, pick it up, and that'll really help you, get a scoop and score.
There you go. All right.
Hey, you tune in for analysis. You walk away with knowing a lot more. All right. Hey, I'm actually going to let our introductory.
What is that? Is that a hush puppy?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we got a hush puppy. Shout out. We are at live at Champy's on Baxter Street. When you come into town and you want to go have a great tailgate, swing by here. They've added their a basket of these hush puppies to their game day menu.
They're ridiculous.
I know. So you notice everyone's covering their mics and eating while I do commercials. Sometimes it sucks to be the boss. But and right now on our YouTube page,
I'm going to take the rest of them.
On our YouTube page, we have a ton of videos for you to watch. I'm actually letting the intros play where they introduce all the players. But you need to go and watch the videos. If you weren't at the stadium, you need to go watch the videos of how they lit it up. It was pretty impressive. Was also impressive, we'll give a big shout-out to our friends over at Athens Ford. They are the #1 Ford-certified pre-owned dealer in Georgia, i.e., if you want a certified pre-owned vehicle where they go through and do 100-plus checks on your vehicle to make sure that it is in tip-top shape. And, of course, everything you buy from them is going to have that lifetime powertrain warranty. They're not going to sell anything unless it's over 80,000 miles, which would shock me. But, anything 80,000 miles or under on a pre-owned vehicle can have a lifetime powertrain warranty. But the reason I'm so adamant about the Ford certified pre-owned, I got one from them. I've driven it. I love it. It's fantastic. It feels brand new. My wife says it still smells like a brand new car.
It does.
He's been in it this weekend.
Not that I'm your wife.
Sometimes. Me and my boy are heading down to, we got a little trip planned, a father-son trip on the bye week, and we're going to take that vehicle. And
where are you going?
Going down to Orlando.
Good.
I'm going to take the boy down to Orlando.
You got cheap flights, man. You ought to go take some time.
We're going to talk. We're going to hang out.
All right.
He's about that
man-to-man.
Man-to-man time. You know?
Right.
And he's 15. This is probably the last time I actually get to talk to him before he knows everything and I know nothing. So we're going to get some talk-in time in. And, again, I enjoy driving it more than I do going to the airport. So we're going to roll down there and in that 2016 Ford Explorer.
Going to Disney World?
No, Universal. Taking board Universal. So we're going to have some fun down there this weekend. So if you're looking for any recruits to pop, it'll probably be while we're on vacation because that's what always happens. But big shout out to our friends at Athens Ford. Go by, check them out. Huge Georgia fans. If any place was more excited about the Dogs winning on Saturday, I'd be stunned. Because
I would like to see Aaron Overhead Doors and Athens Ford fight over it.
Oh, my God. Hey, don't forget Josh here at Champions.
Yeah, no doubt. But he was there.
He was there. Exactly. I wonder how much of the game he remembers. Anyway, let's hit a couple of questions.
Let's get
KCKD on the board.
Hard.
This one's not necessarily hard, but it is an interesting question because I've been wondering this myself. He says, Coach, do you prefer an off week after a big game, after a big win, or another game? An off week might provide a team to provide the time for the team to get a little bit full of themselves reading headlines since there's no opponent to focus on.
I don't think this team's going to get full of themselves because everybody's jumping their ass about why we didn't win more. Everybody's going around. You just beat the number 7 team in the country. If they are, with their schedule, they could be. But all I hear is, "Hey, what's wrong with us? Why didn't we do this?" But seriously, that's the monster we've created here.
Yeah.
So we didn't play as good as we're going to play, but you didn't get an L in the process. So, but and there's not many players that are going to be sitting around thinking how great we are. All they're going to do is they're going to work hard this week on, like I said, the mistakes we made, getting some valuable info on Tennessee, getting ready for them, but also probably checking out some other people just as far as just watching a little tape on them, so when you get ready to play them, you've already seen them a little bit. Not to the point you're looking ahead, but just, there's plenty of time to do some stuff. If you just spend the whole 2 weeks on Tennessee, you're going to kind of get, it's going to be hard. So, and the other thing that we'll do is we'll go against each other, which, hey, that's no vacation for Andrew Thomas out there going against those guys he's going against and vice versa. And just like Cager was saying, hey, I get a lot better going against the DBs in practice and vice versa. So that the answer is My final answer is the best time to have one is when you got some guys hurt.
And now's the time.
And now you got
a bunch,
you don't lose a game because the guy couldn't play. You know what I mean? So everybody says, well, Tennessee, who cares? But, we see a lot of upsets around the country every day. I mean, the things happen that occur.
Well, and
playing at night up there.
Tennessee got nothing to lose either.
Right. And they, the only time Attila the Hun ever lost a battle was when one of his guys defected to another tribe, and he knew all the problems he had with his armaments and all the things, and he knew how to attack those armaments. And that's the only time he ever lost one, because one of his own guys turned on him. And you got Chaney up there, knows our defense, knows all the calls, knows all the check. He'll have a good game plan. Now, he's going to probably have to trade for some players to execute it, but
I was going to say,
you always worry about that.
Some people might think Chaney was the problem with the armaments, but
well, who knows? But I'm just saying, it's you worry about your signals. You're probably going to have to change your signals. You're probably going to have to do some things, but we won't over worry about it because he can't play. But I'm just saying, he knows the ins and outs of our program and all the players who to attack and stuff like that. So that's a little bit of an edge, but at the same time, it's not enough to make that much difference.
I do want to make.
It did make a difference on Attila losing, though.
Yeah, I want to make a real quick point about what's happened in years past. Georgia has gotten ahead, kind of full of themselves. They're reading all the press clippings. They sound, they look impressive. Everyone's excited about what they're doing. They go into LSU, get drubbed.
Was that off their open date?
No, not talking about open date. Just saying team.
We didn't lose to LSU because of that. No. We lost because we couldn't get lined up.
I'm just saying. Then Auburn, very confident. You lose that game in a pretty brutal fashion. The teams that came out of those losses were much more focused, much more, I don't want to say humbled, but, they're like, hey, all that hard work we put in, the games we won before handily, there are teams out there that can go toe-to-toe with us, and they lost 2 of them. This past Saturday, you had a team go toe-to-toe with you. It was harder than you thought, and I think you get the same benefit of having a team that's more focused coming out of that game, like, hey, we still have some big tests ahead of us. It's not all going to be a cakewalk like Murray State, Arkansas State, Vanderbilt. We got some damn strong teams we got to face who are going to give us their best shot. You're starting to get that, hey, this is our biggest game of the year. Everywhere Alabama goes, it's that team's biggest game of the year. Georgia's starting to be that way. Sometimes those teams can jump up and nip you in the butt. And I think right now Georgia had a situation where they could have lost a game, but they came through winning. They'll come out of it more focused than they were. And not saying that they weren't unfocused, but you don't have that loss. And so I think
Here's
you struggled, point. But you won, and you'll grow from that.
That's good stuff there. I read a stat that I might be wrong, but like in the last 27 games, 23 of them been decided by 2 touchdowns or more. Yeah. So we haven't played a lot of close games either way.
That's my point.
So this was a close one that we won, and so we're going to have to understand, just like, hey, you're not going to just run up and down the field on there. But looking at our schedule right now, I mean, Missouri looked pretty good the other day, but I don't know. I mean, we'll just see. I'm not going to say anything because I'll be quoted on it. But you just got to take them one at a time and understand, enjoy the deal. That's why you play football. Enjoy the games. You can't be thinking ahead to the playoffs and all that stuff. But
I think Notre Dame was the second toughest game that Georgia will have in the regular season.
We thought that with Auburn. And maybe Florida's going to be always. But the thing that's great is we got this on our ledger when they start looking at the picking the Final Four. I mean, that's probably going to be that one.
That's a great win.
That one and Auburn are going to be the only chance we probably have of beating a top 10 team, and if Auburn's still there, and maybe Florida will be. I mean, Florida's still got to play LSU and Auburn before they play us, don't they?
I believe that's right.
I tell you, Auburn. Gus has got that quarterback that can jump around. He's a lot like Jake Fromm. He runs that team. He's a freshman, but he's very confident. And that Bo Nix has helped their program
tremendously.
And they got speed on the outside. That Swartz guy scares me to death they're
crazy fast.
Their defensive front now, Brown and Marlon Davidson and Big Cat Bryant. I mean, we try to recruit all those guys,
Absolutely.
So,
where are all three of those kids from?
And then,
Marlon's from Montgomery.
Yeah, but Papo's starting too, isn't he?
Yeah, Papo's from Grayson, Derek's from Lanier, and then Big Cat's from Crisp County. So, I wanted to ask you, Coach, apropos of nothing related to Georgia, but a few people have asked about this, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this too. Did you see what happened with De'Aaron King yesterday, deciding, hey, I've played 4 games, I'm going to take the red shirt, walk away from Houston, or he says maybe he'll play next year at Houston. People thinking that's not probably going to happen. We saw Jamias Williams also make the decision, 4 games, says I'm taking the red shirt.
Don't forget the other kid from Archer at Ohio State is doing the same thing.
Isaiah Pryor. Yeah.
So, it's just –
what do you make of all this?
It's hard to have a team atmosphere when those things are happening, But, in the case of King, he's got a new coach. Things aren't working out well. He might have delusions that he thinks he can go to Oklahoma like these last 3 guys and maybe play there, although he's definitely not the kind of quarterback that they've been playing with. He's more of a runner than he is a passer. And then, Williams, I guess, has never panned out like everybody thought he would. That's why we didn't really recruit him we didn't, his size hurts him a little bit. But I just think for a guy to do that right now is just telling everybody, we had the same thing last year with Kelly Bryant. The handwriting was on the wall and it turned out good for him. But
it's
left Clemson hanging. It's just
it's weird, man.
Yeah.
It's definitely weird. But I may tell you, if you guys need to stay on our show and don't do it afterwards, but watch the end of that Houston game. First of all, Houston's ahead Tulane 28-7, and they didn't do what they needed to, and Tulane came back and it was 31-31, and it looks like Tulane's going to run the clock out. They're going to take a knee, run the clock out, and then go to overtime. They lined up in the victory formation. Everybody knows that. The quarterback's there, 2 guys beside him. The quarterback took the snap, instead of going to his knee, handed it to one of those other guys, and they ran the sitting hen play where, everybody looks like you're just going down. And they ran around the corner and got about 30 yards and then threw a Hail Mary over the middle and won the game. It was a great play. Watch it on YouTube.
Loved it.
Did you see it?
Oh, yeah. I watched it live. I was
it's a way to hurt me.
This is the greatest thing ever. No, I just thought it was fantastic.
That was great coaching by Willie. What's his last name?
Fritz.
Willie Fritz. Too bad Willie didn't try some of that against Georgia in overtime.
That was a great play. I love the idea that, if another team goes up there, you catch them napping.
Yeah, it's either outhouse or penthouse. It really looks good. Or what if you lose yardage? Game's going to overtime.
You fumble it on the carry.
Well, you could, but we've run that sitting hen play a lot of times and it's worked. And only time I ever got mad about it, the referee blew it dead because he didn't realize that we had the guard running it. We just laid the ball down between his legs and the guard ran it, and the referee figured it.
And so they blew it dead. Bastard.
All right.
I called the guy Little Lord Fauntleroy because that's who he looked like.
I'm sure
official.
I'm sure you.
He's a little old short guy, just Little Lord Fauntleroy.
Coach Ronnie Brown always got great questions. Ronnie comes in today. He says, what does it say about the staff's ability to evaluate and also bring in these impactful transfers, especially grad transfers, guys like Javon Wims, Mo Smith, Eli Wolf, and now Lawrence Cager? How hard is it to decide on what guys can help for just 1 year?
Yeah, it's difficult, but when you have a working knowledge of the guy like we did with Smith, Coach Tucker and Coach Smart had worked with the guy, and they knew that he was better than the guys we had here because they'd just gone through spring practice. And then same thing with Cager. We didn't know at the time that Holloman was going to be out, but we knew we lost 3 guys that were supposed to be back. And And Coach Coley had the guy. This guy's caught a touchdown pass against Notre Dame for 2 teams. He caught one when he was in Miami. So, but I like this kid. We talked about it in our shows in the summer. I liked the way he worked against our other defensive backs. And I was out there with my grandson when he was home here from Oklahoma, and we were watching him do some one-on-one and stuff like that. And he caught a deep ball on the guy, and he was jogging back. And I said, do you know who that was you just beat? He said, I don't even know any of these guys. He said, I know the offensive players, but I said, well, that's one of the best guys we got. I won't tell you who it was, but I thought that was a great. Hey, he's just glad to be here on offense. But that for Ronnie State, that's and it's pretty evident that Kirby is an elite evaluator, and he's got another guy in Marshall Malco who is a personnel guy, second to none anywhere, that really can evaluate players, the high school players and the college players. So we don't bring a guy in here just like we brought the punter in, and Nislek helped us. And, the other kid would have helped us from Walford if Rodrigo hadn't really stepped it up, because that kid could boom it.
Yeah, David Marvin. Absolutely.
All right, what else?
All right.
Before you get too far into the questions,
Okay.
I want to give a big shout-out to our friends over at
How
Aaron.
about a hush puppy?
And so while my guys eat and I mute their microphones so they can knock back some food, I'll give a big shout out to our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors. We had somebody on a Saturday before the Notre Dame game reach out and say, hey, my garage door is broken. I just called the folks at Aaron Overhead Doors. We're going to see what they can do. And, of course, Ryan, Lucia, and the folks at Aaron Overhead Doors, what did? They ran out and fixed it. So it just shows that it works. When you're looking for a good customer service company, a team of folks that are like, hey, it's game day Saturday. We don't have time to help you. That's not the response you're going to get from Aaron Overhead Doors. They're like, look, your garage door is broken. You need help. Here we come. And
that's the response you get from UGASports.
Yeah. So big shout out to Aaron Overhead Doors who helped. And, again, thanks to the people who watch our show. We put this podcast out for free. We've thrown a couple advertisements for it. But the point is these are Georgia owned businesses. These are businesses who are people who support the Bulldogs. If you like our show, you like watching it, we appreciate you taking care of our sponsors because they take care of us. It allows us to produce the show. We just bought some new gear so that we're up on Facebook and YouTube live at the same time. If you're watching either one of them, let us know how it sounds. But the idea being we have, because of you were supporting our sponsors who are supporting us, we're able to bring you a better product. So thank you very much. And again, Aaron Overhead Doors ratings, 4.95 stars from 604 verified reviews.
Way to invest in your business, Roddy. Yeah. I like that, Roddy.
Yeah, so it's a situation where you're there. They're constantly voted the top. So big shout out to Ryan Lucia and the folks at Aaron Overhead Doors.
All right. Cliff Payne with a very interesting question here. This is kind of for everybody, including Dave. He says,
oh, boy.
And Cliff says, where does this win over Notre Dame rank among UGA victories at home all time? Roddy, you've been around the program almost 30 years. Where does this stack up for you?
I'd put it in the top 10. I mean, me personally, my favorite game of all time was beating Clemson the day that the Braves clinched the pennant, You
told that story on Saturday.
Yeah, that was – well, we were drinking – well, some people were drinking moonshine. A lot of stories came out that day. I don't know who those people were. But that was just an amazing day. And, of course, beating LSU was huge. 04
or 13?
13. Well, hell, both.
Both
you beat LSU. So, to me, the first thought is, winning an SEC game is bigger than any non-conference game, right off the bat. That's a big deal. But I think that this one's definitely in the top 10 simply because you have a situation where you were on the national stage. It was one of the biggest viewed games in, anywhere. The biggest viewed game since 2013 or something like that? Just crazy.
The 15 Alabama game, I have to think.
Yeah. So you have this huge game on their platform. You introduce these new lights, and I don't remember the last time you go back to those LSU wins, beating a ranked South Carolina team, beating a ranked Clemson team. I don't remember having that many 5 stars in attendance for recruiting and putting out, hey, I mean, think about it. You didn't blow out the number 7 team in the nation, but you beat them. So the coaches can go to these kids and say, yeah, we won this game. We're a national title contender. We're being talked about in the playoffs. but we could still get better. We could still get better. Hey, Darnell Washington, if you want to come to Georgia, we could get better. Hey, Kendall Milton, we could get better if you showed up. Hey, Noah Sewell, we need more inside linebackers. We would love for you to come here. You just work down the list going, we won by 6 points. We were favored by 14, 15. If you'd been here, I'm just saying that's how I'd spend it if I was the coaches. Point being, I think this was definitely a top 10 win because you beat the number 7 team in the country. A lot of people are going to say, well, they're not that good. Okay, let's see what they do the rest of the year.
Sure.
Because in our 3-2-1, I told you, and this is going to be my one, I told you so. I said, it's funny how we expect Georgia from game 1 to game 2 to get better, right? Look how many penalties they had in the first game. We expect them to get better by game 2. They improved that. If Georgia's having a tackling problem in game 2, we expect that tackling problem to be fixed by game 3. We expect our team to get better. We don't give that same credit to another team. Notre Dame had only played 2 games. They had time. What were they going to do? They were going to fix their issues. They fixed a lot of them. They came in with a great game plan.
People don't realize they had an open date between their first game and their second one.
Yeah.
They played Louisville, and then they had a week off before they played New Mexico. So that's a good chance for them to – I'm sure they worked a lot more on us than they did in New Mexico.
Yeah, so you had that. So I'm saying that's pretty big. Where's the rank for you?
Tim Pennell and Dave McMahon both say, "Hey, that 2000 game against Tennessee was pretty good."
Oh, that was great, but I mean, it was because we hadn't beaten them, when I was here. But it was good. We should have beaten them, but it was a spectacular event as far as everybody's celebrating. That's for sure.
I think the hype around it.
When you rip down the goalpost, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you saying that, Dave.
I would say I
don't think that was as big a game for the program as this one was.
The hype around this one was as big as I can remember. I think it stacks up with. Now, you kind of go back to those ideas of, well, does it change when you were a student? Does it make it more impactful then? And so, for me, I've always got a soft spot for 07 against Auburn, the blackout. Yeah. That was just such a crazy atmosphere in the stadium. But the other night, I mean, it was electric. What they were able to do, what they were able to create, just from a atmosphere standpoint, I think it was probably the best atmosphere that they've ever had in Sanford Stadium.
I would not quibble with that at all. But again, I also think that beating up on Tennessee, LSU, anybody save Alabama is considered just another SEC dogfight. It was a good game. You take out a national darling like Notre Dame, a team that these pundits
and you got some history with.
Exactly. Think about it. You're 3-0 against the only team in the nation that has its own network. Its own TV network that has their single deal with them. Notre Dame is 0-3 against your squad. That's pretty impressive. You did it on a big display. I mean, on a big stage. It's got to be up there. Again, I think when I think big games, the Tennessee game, LSU beating Auburn when they were ranked, the blackout, one of the craziest things I've ever seen. But for a national perception, beat a Texas, beat a UCLA, beat a USC, beat a Ohio State, beat a Clemson.
This is a very good.
The only thing that I would say negative about that is we did it, but everybody's finding something wrong with it on the national deal. Hey, what's wrong with Georgia? Why didn't they win more convincing?
They can all go to hell and play Notre Dame
I'm saying they shouldn't. But I'm saying that they want to rank us number 3, but they say, well, you're number 3, but you didn't win by So that exposure is good, but I mean, it exposed the fact we didn't win by what we needed to, so people are talking about that instead of the win, which really makes me mad. But
let the team go into that same game without us starting corners and see what happens.
Yeah, so I agree with you. That's what I'm telling you. All right, let's go some next here.
We've belabored this one. Let's see. Now, a bunch of people, and this is a good point. Citrus Trail on YouTube says, Kirby said he'd never seen a crowd anywhere have that much impact on a game. I think that's a very good point. When you say it like that, I mean.
Well, the results are in the pudding. Proof's in the pudding. All those penalties, I mean, great job.
And timeouts they had to call?
Yeah.
They were calling timeouts left and right, not to put in a better play, but it's because they couldn't line up right. They couldn't hear anything.
Did you happen to see when I watched the replay of Brian Kelly getting after that referee on the sideline? Calling the penalties on the kicks. I mean,
Any thought on the injuries, by the way?
He should have got a 15-yard penalty on that, the way he was talking to that guy. I mean, they're supposed to be giving you unsportsmanlike conduct unless that guy was a really good friend of his and knew he would swear at him any time. Yeah, I mean, Coach Kelly saying, hey, well, we're not a tempo team, but when they did both of those so-called injuries, we were in the tempo. So, and it looks very vivid that what they did. So, but who knows? I don't want to, I don't want to get into that as far as.
I will.
Well, I mean, it's over with. What can you do?
Yeah.
I mean, people do that. I mean, people do it everywhere.
Hey, I guarantee you there is a call on the Georgia sideline that's like, look, you got a hang now. You need to hit the ground.
Everybody's got one.
You got to have – it's part of the game. It drives me crazy when you see it in professional soccer. It drives me nuts. That's why I don't like
watching. And if a guy's really hurt and you can't do anything about it because people think you're faking, then you'd be sick the rest of your life.
And that's the thing about it is it's strategic, but it's also playing at an angle that is really hard to deny in this era of football.
I call it the homeless quandary. You see a guy on the side of the road.
Is he really
he's
homeless?
out there with a sign saying, hey, we'll work for food, need money for down on my luck. Is he scamming you or not?
That's between him and God.
Right. I roll down the window, give him a buck.
Do you
or
ask
whatever.
him? Do you say, "Are you scamming me, man?
Are you really going to use this for
Can
drugs?
you give me a life history?"
Yeah. So, but I'm like,
Are you going to use this for booze? Because that's what I was.
Are you?
Do.
No. The number one question I ask them. You know what the number one question I ask them? Are you an old secondary coach that had been beat deep too many times? You've been beat deep too many times.
That would cause them to be homeless and drive them to drink.
Hey, I don't want to make fun of those guys.
No, it's okay.
What else we got here?
But, I will say that was frustrating. But again, you won the game anyway. It drove you crazy. But I did like how we saw Georgia practice it a few times in the games, and then they. I don't want to say fully implemented, but they were really moving against Notre Dame. I think that is going to be fun. Hell,
we can do that. We can do that, but
see what happens at Tennessee when they start going fast. That's going to be.
We can do that, and when our defense is full boat, it's easier to do that. But when you're not, then if all of a sudden you're 3 and out and you're doing that, and your defense is struggling,
not the time to do it.
But if everybody would just add it up. There's a correlation between us stopping them 3 and out 3 straight times and us going to the hurry up.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Academia Brewing Company. If you are not going to a game this weekend because, hit them up with the
Hush Puppy Break.
Hush Puppy Break. Hey, I love the fact I can mute it so I don't have to hear them chomping. It makes me sad. If you're not going to the Georgia game this weekend because they're on the bye week, swing out by Oktoberfest over at Academia Brewing Company. A ton of bands are going to be out there starting on the 27th. This is 27th, 28th, 29th. Tons of bands, tons of their food, tons of their skull beer. So, dude, I'm thirsty. Apparently. so for those listening at home, Jake has wolfed down his beer there. But Academia, it's fantastic food because they actually have a chef out there. It's not like, hey, come out to our brewing company and get, fried whatnots, chicken tenders, or just, something they buy frozen, they toss them in a big bag, deep fryer, and they say, hey, we got food out here. No, this is actually a chef out there. He makes wonderful food. They have ridiculous numbers of beers out there that you can try. Great stuff. Some of the best beer you'll ever have. And they're going to have a ton of bands. So if you want to go Oktoberfest, you don't want to go to Helen, you want to stay in town, listen to some great music. They have an indoor stage, outdoor stage. Go by Academia Brewing Company this weekend, September 27th through the 29th.
All right.
Quick story here. When I was in the 7th grade, Duke was playing Navy, and Navy had Joe Bellino, who ended up winning the Heisman Trophy. And I went down to the game, and some of the cadets came, as part of the trip. And so I went up to the concession stand there, and this one guy from the north, he said, instead of barbecue, he said, I'll take one of those Q-barbs and a push-uppy. And I started to say, man, he can't even read and say barbecue sandwich and a hush puppy.
Wow.
All right, let's go. That's bad.
All right,
that's a true story.
I do got a lot of recruiting questions. I want
to hit it, man.
Yeah, I'm going to do a rapid fire on some of these. Dogbite U says, are we kidding ourselves regarding Jordan Birch's interest in UGA? He sure missed a great weekend to visit, but of course that may have nothing to do with him
What's
not
South
being
Carolina's
interested.
record right now?
Not very good.
We're not kidding ourselves.
I don't think so either. I think that
This is what I tell Jordan Birch. I said, look, if you what are you going to do when you get out? You're a pro football player and all. You got a chance to do a lot of things coming to Georgia, and then you're going to make some money. What are you going to put? You going to put it in a bank that pays good dividends, or are you going to put it in one that doesn't? And right now, this bank's paying big dividends, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. DGD 1994 says, with Zach Evans news, I assume he's pointing specifically to Sam Spiegelman flipping over his future cast yesterday for Evans to A&M. He says, is Tank Bigsby a take now? It seems that way with him being at the game Saturday. Also, crowd was a huge factor. I've heard some things about Tank over the last couple days. It does sound like Georgia made some headway there. Going to be a tough flip, I think, for them because this kid came out. He wanted to be a Bulldog at one point. I think Georgia's going to stay in this.
Got to burn his saddle right now. Absolutely. It'd be hard, but we could.
Absolutely. Let's see.
He would not be the first guy who committed somewhere else. I don't want to say in a fit of pique. That is unfair to Tank, but I use that phrase just as a, hey, they're not recruiting me. This other team is. I'm going to go there. They didn't want me enough. But Georgia or any other team has come back on towards the end and said, hey, we do want you. You prove it, and all of a sudden it works out. So I'm just saying that
it could happen.
It could happen. But don't write it off. Hell, if you didn't have zero interest when it comes to the stadium.
Ovado Dog says, if UGA is lucky enough to get commitments from Darnell Washington and Theo Johnson, will they still actively recruit Eric Gilbert as a wide receiver? If so, what are their chances? I do think that there's a chance they'll do that. However, I think Georgia's pitch to Gilbert has been pretty consistent that they want him as a tight end. I think that other teams have gotten into his ear about the wide receiver thing. He's kind of latched onto that. And as I told somebody, we did a recruiting chat last week ahead of the game. I'm just getting the feeling, and it seems like since the summer's ended, that Eric Gilbert's just looking for a reason to go somewhere else. It's almost Jaden Hazelwood-esque.
We see that occasionally. A kid's just like, everyone expects. Oh my God! Why can't I think of the Notre Dame? I mean, the kid that went to play at Ohio State, Raekwon McMillan.
Yeah.
I felt the same way about Raekwon. Raekwon was just looking for, and I went down and saw him at his school, and I'm like, well, talk about Georgia. He goes, Georgia's too traditional.
Right.
Too traditional.
Right.
That was his
Notre Dame.
And he's like, yeah.
Oh, you said he went to Ohio State.
He went to Ohio State, and I'm like, wait a minute, okay. And I said, so kind of fleshed it out for me. He's like, same locker room, same thing. And I'm like, and it was right after they had redone the locker room, they had changed everything, they had revamped everything. And he said it's too traditional. So to your point, and again, nothing against Raekwon. I think he's a fantastic player, good guy.
Oh, great
was
player.
Always very kind to me. Again, stopped what he's doing, gave me an interview when I went down to see him. And
that's.
But again, I just had that feel that he's like, no.
But
and he said, everyone expects me to go to Georgia. I'm not going to go to Georgia.
I hope we can get one of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do feel good about your chances with Darnell Washington. I think that he's a guy that you've got circled high atop your list. Look, if you land that guy, that's going to answer a lot of questions at your tight end position.
Pass the eyeball test, man.
No doubt.
Just because you went out to see him.
I saw him play, too.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Anything else?
What about Sewell? I mean, did you talk to his dad yesterday?
No, so Sewell was actually in town until kind of late yesterday. He got into Athens late on Saturday, kind of made it just in time for the game, so he had the 48 hours to spend on campus, and they took full advantage. Ended up staying through yesterday. Going to be reaching out to them this evening and seeing if we can't get an update with them now that they're back home. I imagine they're quite exhausted. It's quite a turnaround. Same thing for Kendall Milton.
Talk about a guy pass the eyeball test.
Unbelievable. As I said, in my opinion, pound for pound, best recruit in the nation.
You want to talk about pound for pound? 260 pounds as inside linebacker. My first thought is he's too big.
Well, you saw him though.
I mean, he
does he look 260
he
to
does
you?
Not. He does not. And I understand that is. I don't want any of these nutritionists coming after me, but when I think of a guy that's doesn't look 260 but weighs that much. I'm thinking muscle density. This guy must be built out of lead.
Hey, and he can.
And we saw
watch the highlight film. He runs at running back. He runs down and did the same kind of jump over a guy, just like we saw Smith do the other night.
That's what I'm saying. He doesn't move like 260. He moves like 205.
When he was here in camp, he was out there. He went around, turned, and did a standing back flip.
Yeah.
And then he took the football and spun it on his finger.
Yeah, he just casually stands in warm-ups and catches one-handed passes. I mean, it's the kid's ridiculous.
He's a freak.
Do it all, man. A couple people asking about commits moving forward. I think that you have to be patient because Georgia, the guys that they're still in on, are the big tuna. I mean, they're the guys that you're going to have to fight for until the end. I still feel good about your chances with Keely Ringo. Like I said, I feel good about Darnell Washington. I think that Sewell, I think that having the chance to impress him with that game on Saturday. I
hope Oregon starts losing some.
And as I mentioned, I think if he comes south, he's coming to Georgia. I do think that's going to be the case. So
I like your tuna reference there.
Did he visit Clemson too? Is he interested in Clemson?
He is interested in Clemson. They're in his top list, but he hasn't scheduled an official visit there, and he has scheduled one to see Texas A&M, and I think those are the only two he's got right now.
Yeah. When you watch these tuna shows, all of a sudden the tuna takes off. It takes line, and you have to slowly work, crank by crank to get that tuna closer to the boat, get him closer, get him closer. The big ones are the hardest to land. They take the most amount of time. That's what you're seeing with some of these big names. They're just going to take some time.
Got to show some patience here because it's not going to.
And don't get me started on people go, oh, well, it's a big weekend. We can expect, 5-6 commits.
You could if you were the guys that want to come that don't have the offers these others. You could get plenty of them.
Yes. No doubt.
We got to be fill the class by the end of the week if you.
We got to be really selective down the stretch here. And we don't know how many we're going to have. I mean, how many of these guys are going to leave? Probably Thomas, probably Swift. Who else? But maybe Fromm. Who knows? So,
maybe Wilson.
And I mentioned the potential yesterday of a second quarterback in this class. Watch out for that.
Hey, that was pretty good that you picked that up. Watch out for that.
And I think don't try to get my scoop away.
I'm just saying, you got to. No one was talking about a second quarterback, and then you come up with this second quarterback BS, and now all of a sudden. Everyone else is going, oh, yeah, Georgia's taking a second quarterback. So how many people are copying you?
Makes sense to me, and I hadn't even thought about it until I read what you said. But, what happens if all of a sudden Jake leaves or, Mathis can't play because of his head situation?
Well, and look at this. Look at what you saw with the King kid at Houston. Right. I think that we're moving into an era where the norm is going to have to be 2 quarterbacks each year because you're going to have guys transferring so frequently. I just think that that's the case.
We got to think that Georgia's also looking for maybe a grad transfer too.
Yeah, I'd like to look at some of these guys that are committed, some of these horse manure teams too.
Yeah.
I could make it a lot better if I would say horse H-A-S-H. But these horse manure teams, why are you going to cast your lot with them? I mean, you don't even know if the coach is going to be there.
I do want to before. I'm sorry. The transition into my Your Pie ad is going to be awesome.
You know who will be there for you? Your Pie.
There you go. There's Sam. I'm trying to think of Your Pie. I'm listening to Coach cracking me up as usual. Big shout out to our friends at Your Pie. They hosted us last week. We had a great show out there. I hope everybody caught it. I do want to mention that they have introduced you can go in and get your pasta customized completely. We had some down on Coach's end of the table without a fork. He just went right at it and killed it. It was delicious. After the show was over, we had a great time with all the food they had left over, and of course. They're like, oh, that pizza's been out for, we're wolfing it down. Here, let's make you 3 or 4 fresh ones. So, I mean, shout out to Drew French and Natalie French and the folks over at Your Pie. Again, Georgia grads, big Georgia alumni, 70 locations and counting. They're constantly opening new places. I know that not all of you can get to Athens, and we talk about a lot of our Athens places, but there are Your Pie locations everywhere, so please support them because they support us.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. All right, next
week.
Wrap soon. Yeah, we definitely should. We've got a little long today. Next week, got the bye, but we're still going to be on, right?
Yeah, we'll do the show next Tuesday noon. You can catch it on our YouTube channel. Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. and it helps us out. And, of course, we'll also be on our standard Facebook pages, so if you want to send in your questions that way. We're just trying to get out to as many people as possible because we got Coach Donnan here, and he knows everything, and we know nothing.
Not really.
It's convenient to actually have an expert who can explain all this stuff, and you don't have to listen to our conjecture. So,
one guy was asking me on my blog that the people need to know, maybe that I could explain it, was asking about what's the reason for a guy going in motion and then coming back around, going back out the other side, what we call orbit motion. Usually when you put a guy in motion, it's because you're coming across to show if the defense is in man or zone. If they're in man, the guy's going to run with him. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when the guy runs with him, though, he loses the guy in transition because those big guys up front, and he can't see him, and he's running over to the other side. So when you orbit the guy, he starts over there, and then he goes back out the other side. And sometimes you get an advantage. You can throw the quick pass to him, and that guy can't react because he's run over to the other side, thinking. So, and it's also a disguise there when he goes back, and then they go back. Sometimes they lose their run support patterns, who's going to be doing what. So orbit's good. It's a good motion, and I'm glad we got it. And
let's do it with James Cook.
A lot of people do it with. We've done it with James already in the season.
Let's do it all the time.
But the difference in orbit and say zoom or zap or zip is the guy goes behind the deep back and then comes back around instead of going in front of him like he could on the jet sweep or something like that.
See that in the NFL a lot. Anyway, that's all the time we have for this week's show. Nice little football 101 message there from Coach Donnan at the end. Be sure to share this with your friends. We'd appreciate it. And we will see everyone next Tuesday at noon.
Let Radi know if you're interested in watching that watch-around, too.
Yeah, if you want to do a watch-along, let us know. Talk to you later. Take care, folks.
That's it for this episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast. Tune in next week for more Georgia Bulldogs news and notes from Athens.